Glenn Cordelli. I represent Tufton Borough, Wolfboro, and Ossipee.
Good morning, I'm Senator Deborah Altshuler, representing the towns of Hampton, Northampton, Hampton Falls, Greenland, Stratham, and Rye. And Exeter. Do I say Exeter? Because that's usually the first one I say. Exeter.
Good morning to everybody. I'm Rick Ladd. I come from Haverhill, New Hampshire, Grafton 5.
And I'm Ruth Ford from Stoddard, New Hampshire. The next order of business is to elect a clerk. Who is willing to take some notes so we know what we're doing here? Don't all shout at the same time.
Don't we have an administrative assistant from
No,
the
we
Senate
don't.
here?
No, we don't. Some things we don't. We don't have an administrative assistant taking notes.
I'm ready. I'm not volunteering.
Deborah, did you take notes or would you like?
I'm the worst clerk ever.
Okay.
Yeah, you definitely don't want
Well,
that.
I'll tell you what.
I'll record it. I'll record it to,
Reluctantly agreed to do that.
Matthew, are you willing to take some notes?
Yes, these are recorded somewhere, so I can see them and look back later. Okay.
Okay. I think that we can, you know,
Yeah, we're live
piece
right now.
it together. Okay. Now let's talk about what we are charged with. The charge for this committee is shall monitor the implementation of RSA 194-F, including the impact of state education funding to local district schools, and make recommendations for any legislative changes to the Education Freedom Savings Account program. And we have to have a report in by November 30th each year, including what we have found, recommendations, or any corrective or technical improvements that the Education Freedom Account program may require. So that's what we have before us. So does anyone want to start, talk about charges and what's next? Any findings that anybody has come across over the year since we last met?
yes. Well, I have.
So, Altshuler, do you want to start?
May I? So I have a couple of questions about, let me just pull up my questions here. And So I have a couple of questions. One I can remember off the top of my head without looking at my notes here. There was mention at the last meeting, and do we have minutes, by the way, from the last meeting? Or they're just the memorandum. Great, which is the report. Fantastic. So I was at that meeting as an observer, and there was mention that a number of students, a couple hundred students or 500 plus students had exited the program. And I can't remember if there was a graduation or that they had exited the program and re-enrolled in public schools. Like I'd love to get some more insight as to how we track the exits from the program, other than, like how that's tracked.
You mean how many people are leaving the
Right, so
EFA?
right, whether it's through graduation or moving or re-enrolling in public school or opting to, leave the program because they don't want to have to go through what's it called, the class wallet for homeschooling projects. So love to hear some of that.
Do we have somebody in the audience who is willing to discuss that?
I have to find
The
the
Kate
report,
Baker?
because I gave the report to Brian at the
Okay.
department head, and I think gave it to you at the last meeting, so I just have to find it, and then I can review it.
on the website?
I don't know.
Okay, let me check here. Because I did not, I may have missed it in the report itself.
Well, I have it in the recommendations, define successful graduation versus program completion. Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah.
Where, what page is that?
4.
Page 4.
I think that would be part of the question, but not the whole question.
Right.
Yeah, no, yes, this is the graduation part, so. It doesn't, yeah, so under that, who else, are those 525 all graduates, like going on to either higher education or entering the workforce or whatever it is they're doing that is not involving being a part of the education scholarship fund?
You talk about the EFAs,
Yes,
not the Children's Scholarship Fund, but
No.
the EFAs.
yep.
Are you willing to talk about it?
I'm
Okay.
still looking for the report. I'm looking for it in my.
Okay, who has the
on my
report?
phone, so a little challenging to find it in this moment. So give me maybe 10 minutes.
If we could have somebody to come up here and talk about it, whoever has the report. I can't see this thing here.
Okay, while we're waiting for that second question, let me go back. So in looking at, the EFA grants page on the DOE's website, it seems that we are now missing the spending summary by vendor, and that's something that Mr. Merz and I talked about when we met to get me up to speed on this program. And I know I have some, at least cursory information about vendor spending, but that's just paper. And I'm wondering, where is the vendor spending located for people to be able to see? Because it used to be on the EFA grants page of the website of the DOE, and now I don't see that. So has it been moved? Is it in the Children's Scholarship Fund website? Like, where's the vendor spending for EFAs?
Mr. Appleby, would you have that? I thought it was.
And forgive me, I know some of you in this room by face, most of you, nope. So, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourselves, if you have something to add, I'd really appreciate it, so I can get to know all the stakeholders and people who are involved here.
Caitlin Davis, can you help with that?
Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Caitlin Davis from the Department of Education. The department did not receive any requests prior to this meeting from the committee, so we're not prepared to talk about any specific topics. So I know you're looking for report and data, which we would be able to have had we received requests or an agenda ahead of time, but we don't necessarily have this information at our fingertips. So just going forward, if you do have specific information you want the department to be prepared to talk about, it'd be helpful to have the requests ahead of time. Relative to the expenditure report, the Department of Education does not publish that information on the website. The CSF is not required to provide that to the Department of Education. And while we've had it on the Department of Education in the past, it is not specific Department of Education data. And so we removed that from our website because of the number of informational requests we get about that we don't have additional information we can provide. And so when people ask us for that information, we instruct them to reach out to the Children's Scholarship Foundation for further information.
All right, thank you. It's nice to meet you. Yeah, very nice to meet you. I look forward to working with you. So if I understand, I appreciate, knowing ahead of time what the questions will be, but to be perfectly honest with you, capacity-wise, I was gathering my questions over the weekend.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious though, you said you had the website, the information on the website, but then the DOA made a decision to remove it. And the justification for removing it was that it wasn't proprietary to the DOE, is that correct?
It's not,
Okay.
not an informational report the Department of Education generates. It was information that was being provided to us that we then directly published to our website, and we didn't feel that was appropriate.
Why not?
Because it's not our information, and it's not information that we can discuss further. So the
Okay.
information that you find on the Department of Education website relative to CSF is information that we're specifically generating. So when you look at the town-by-town payments, for example, that's based on the work the Department of Education is doing. The Children's Scholarship Foundation is the organizational scholarship as selected by the department, that scholarship organization rather, that is selected by the department, that has the responsibility of making the payments to the vendors, contracting with the parents, doing all of that work. And so that information can be provided directly by the Children's Scholarship Foundation.
It can't be?
It can be.
Oh, it can be.
It can be. So the department does not need to be the intermediary for that.
But the Department of Education isn't the Children's Scholarship Fund a contract?
They are contractors.
Yeah. So again, me catching up, when the Department of Health and Human Services, which I'm, much more familiar with because of my past work, when the Department of Health and Human Services has a contract with a third-party vendor, and there are so many because of the services that the state of New Hampshire does not provide itself, but it farms out through contract, all sorts of things. We have that information about what the contract was and what they spent the money on, and like what services they're delivering and who they're delivering it to by, aggregated data. So, that's not unusual. So I don't understand what the difference would be under what am I missing that the DOE doesn't put the same information out that DHHS does?
Yes, so when you're looking at an HHS contract, and I'm not familiar with any HHS contracts, I would imagine it's requiring somebody to provide X, Y, and Z services, and then they're providing data showing they're providing X, Y, and Z services. The Children's Scholarship Foundation contract with the Department of Education requires the Children's Scholarship Foundation to provide EFAs to students.
Yeah.
And so we then publish a report on the EFAs that they're providing to students. That's the requirement, and then operate the scholarships with the parents and the students. But the Department of Education's requirements is specific to the student data and the payments we're making to the Children's Scholarship Foundation. So the Children's Scholarship Foundation is the keeper of that service provider information. There's nothing in law that's requiring the Department of Education to do any additional work with those service providers.
Okay, so aren't you curious though? Like, it's a lot of money. Like, aren't you, I don't know, I'm looking, I have information here that was provided to me offline by the Children's Scholarship Fund EFA expenditures, and it would seem that if I'm curious about it, that other people would be curious about it, including the Department of Education, as to where the money goes, and, that it's being spent on things that it's supposed to be spent on. Like, that would be of interest to be able to review the contract, even at a bare minimum. Yeah?
I'm unsure what your question is.
My question is, wouldn't that be of interest for the DOE to review the expenditures because that's what the contract is to spend money on kids.
So the department's interest is implementing RSA 194F, and there's nothing specifically that requires the department to publish that information.
That wasn't my question, but, do we have information on the,
Your first question?
on the removal of students? Awesome.
Maybe we both do.
Do you have two?
Yeah, the fact sheet, the- Yeah.
Where is that?
it's the 2024 EFA fact sheet. It's the Department of Education
Okay,
information. This is 2023-24 EFA returners is the category.
how did you get to that through the website?
It was something I had downloaded, so it's just a document I have on my,
Oh, you didn't access that through the.
I'm sure I
website.
did, but
Ah.
I downloaded, so I haven't looked at the website for this.
Okay,
But-
I can talk you to find that exactly.
yes,
So on the
please do.
Department of Education website on the homepage,
On it,
there's a green banner across, and it talks about educational opportunities or something like that. What is the second category in?
yes, educational pathways,
Yes, pathways. And so if you scroll down to the bottom of that,
section 504, no. Oh, education free, oh, yeah, goodness, hold on, education freedom accounts, got it.
and then that's where the information is.
Is this, it says, I see a special education eligibility fact sheet, list of non-public schools and directory of education service
I
providers.
think you clicked on the special education site rather than the education freedom account site.
Nope, I'm on education freedom accounts at the top of the page. Education freedom accounts allow New Hampshire students to direct state-funded per pupil education adequacy towards select educational
Oh.
programming, so.
Sorry, there's one more category. So where it says education freedom account grant information.
Oh, that's a hyperlink.
That's a hyperlink,
Look at that, all right.
And then.
I must have to
downstairs
adjust the
fact sheet.
color on my screen because black and blue look very, very similar. Okay. And Representative Cordelli, are you on the EFA fact sheet 2023? Is that what it is?
23-24, yes. Well, 24 I am looking at.
24. Do we have a 24?
This is
That's not
school
on
year
here.
23-24.
23-24,
Okay.
yeah, school year, yes.
Okay, it says EFA fact sheet 2023, so
Yeah,
I'll
okay.
click through to that.
Right.
All right. And I think,
So there is
are you
a
saying the returners? Is that-
returners, yes.
Got it, got it.
Yep.
Page 2.
Right.
Excellent. Other exits, 525. There we are. Okay. So now we see where the, I got it. I appreciate your patience. Thank you very much. So who are these 525 and where did they go? Because those are, I see the graduates are 108, so it's separate, right? All right, so I'm wondering, is because it says 108 for graduate completers and it's in parentheses, what, is it because it's extrapolated out of,
So so that's kind of an equation that you have here. So at the beginning of the year enrollment, you had 411 kids.
Yep.
And then you had 1,577 new kids that
On-
entered.
oh, okay, so we had 4,211 returning,
Mhm,
an additional 1,577.
mhm. And then you had 108 kids that graduated or were noted as completed by the Children's Scholarship Foundation.
Got it?
And you have 75 kids that returned to public schools as noted by other public schools.
Okay,
And then we have other exits, which the Children's Scholarship Foundation didn't provide a specific placement for. And
okay,
then you have the end of the year enrollment. So that's kind of how
Okay.
that equation works.
thank you. Thank you for walking me through that. So do we know what they left to do?
The department does
We
not
do.
have that information.
Okay,
So.
but I see someone behind you giving a thumbs up, so, all right, great. All right, so it looks like that could probably go on a future agenda item, is asking the department to put the removed data back on the website so we could all see that.
The which data?
The expenditures, like what we're spending.
So that information should be published by the Children's Scholarship Foundation. It's not the department's data. And the Children's Scholarship Foundation has those reports and can answer additional questions about that report. The department doesn't have data behind that. But so for the information that you're seeing here in front of you with the fact sheet, the Department of Education has some additional data. We have student-specific data that we can reconcile against.
What do you mean, what kind of student-specific data? Like,
So like,
what category on this?
for all of the information on the fact sheet, for example.
Oh, okay, so for the other exits?
Well, that, we just have a category of other exits, so we don't have, that's not a category that we've left, so we have just other exits for that one. But we can tell you the exact, like, student count for all of those. We can tell you the student information behind it. We obviously couldn't discuss it publicly because it's personally identifiable information.
Sure.
But this is based on reports that the Department of Education is required to collect to comply with the law.
Okay. But as far as tracking what third-party vendors spend the contractual payments on?
That
When
is
do
not a
you review
requirement in RSA 194F. This Children's Scholarship Foundation has that requirement. They're the ones that make the payments.
So,
And this is no different than, and this is no different.
I'm going back to here, so
So this is no different than how we treat a traditional public school, for example. We don't have a list of every single vendor that a public school uses, say, provide transportation or something like that. We know that they have transportation expenditures because they're required to do a DOE 25, but we don't know if we don't know the various different transportation providers or something like that. And so this is based on reporting the Department of Education has. And so if somebody were required to call the Department of Education and said, I want to know all of the transportation providers that my district is using, we would say, please contact your district. They have that information. And so we're treating the Children's Scholarship Foundation in that exact same way relative to that information.
Oh, okay, I see how you're treating it, like, so you would direct somebody to go ask for the municipal contracts, like who those contracts were given to.
Correct, because the Department of Education does not want to be in a place where we're providing information on, or providing answers on something that's not our information, and we don't necessarily have all of the data or the details behind it, so we might not provide the correct information. And so where the Children's Scholarship Foundation is the organization that's working directly with those service providers, understands the processes with those service providers, what parents are paying to those service providers, or what EFAs are using. So the department doesn't have any of that information.
Representative Cordelli.
Thank you. Am I correct, though, that you have this information because you basically track students so that, I don't know if you want to call it double dipping, so that, someone's not getting an EFA and is also enrolled full-time in a public school. You're doing that kind of tracking of those students so some of this fact sheet information is because of that tracking that you do.
That's correct. So the department's process is that for every single student that's in the EFA program, the Children's Scholarship Foundation generates a SASID number, a state assigned student identifier, no different than a public school does. And then they report all of the kids that are enrolled in their program with the SASID number. And then we use that information to generate our 4 payments that we pay each year in accordance with law, in addition to the phase-out grants that would be generated to school districts for children that leave a school for an EFA account. And so the information that you see here, including subgroup information, that is used for the payments, all of the dates and the switcher information. We have that information in our system. We can track students in that way. Things like sex, race, subgroup, that's all information that is attached to a child's SASID number.
So if I understand things right, you wanted to know how many kids are graduating.
No, I see with that right there.
Okay, so we can
We've
see
got-
that. Okay, that's
Yeah,
fine.
we've got that right there.
Then you are looking at the expenses.
Yeah, this one, the
Right.
other exits.
I'm trying to find out your question.
2, and it sounds like Mr. Mers has the answer to this one, so we're waiting on that.
Okay,
She's got that, and I'm now hearing from Ms. Davis that the DOA does not collect the information after they've made the payments quarterly. Quarterly?
Quarterly, kind of,
Ish?
4 times a year, not
4 times a
necessarily
year.
quarterly.
Not necessarily quarterly. When the payments are made 4 times a year, there's not information coming back to the DOE on what did that money get spent on.
Correct, that's exactly correct.
So that's what I was trying
So
to
you're not-
figure out,
okay, you're
is
not
where,
looking-
if it is, where is it?
Okay, you're not looking at the EFA money for each child. You're not looking at what that is. You're looking at the expenses for the child plus everything else?
Well, I'm looking at, I have this here.
It's unclear to me exactly what it is that you want.
We have a category of providers or retailers.
I've seen that.
Right, so this,
You want to
I
find
mean,
out how much.
where
money
is
is
that here? Yeah.
Okay.
Where is that? If I weren't a sitting member of the New Hampshire legislature, how could I see this information? That is the question.
Okay,
And that's what we would direct people to the Children's Scholarship Foundation for.
Okay, so now I've got, that second question is for Mr. Morris. Excellent.
good.
Thank you, I appreciate it, and thank you for helping walk us through the website. If I may, Madam Chair, I have just another couple of questions for Ms. Davis. On the demographic fact sheet, could you just explain to me the difference between a switcher, a COVID switcher, and a choice switcher? It says EFA switcher timeline for currently.
So those were categories the
Yeah.
department had just determined relative to the implementation of this program.
Yep.
So there were 266 kids that received an EFA that had switched, that had been in public school at some point in their career, but switched to an EFA, so they now receive an EFA, but prior to the EFA program being available. So they might have switched, they might have attended their public school in 2018, and then left their public school in 2018, and then when this program began in 2023, they received an EFA. So they had left public school prior to this program being implemented.
2020.
Yes, prior to this being implemented.
Okay,
And then COVID was really just referring to the time period where they switched. So those were the kids that switched in 2020. And that was something that people had asked specifically of the department, how many kids
Yeah.
lived specifically in 2020. Whether it was because of COVID or not is not what this is trying to say. It's just trying to say the COVID time period, so the 2020 school year.
okay, so if we don't know if it was related to COVID, why do we call it COVID? Why not just say 2020 switchers?
At the time when this request was done, it was requested those ones be specifically identified because of the COVID school year. So I don't have
Okay,
I don't remember exactly when that was, but. And then 2022 switchers are because that's the first year the EFA program began, so those are the kids that were in public school up until that year. Same with 23, same with 24.
got it. What's 2021?
2021 and 2020 would be both the COVID year. The department did not delineate those two.
So there's 290 kids for both 2020 and 2021.
That switched during those, that were enrolled.
Switchers.
Yes.
Got it. Okay, that's all I got right now.
Are we done?
For the moment, yeah, thank
Okay.
you. Yeah.
Anybody else has a question? Representative Condelli, Representative.
I'd just like to clarify, there's a number of areas within education that grants go down to the school district, whether it be school building aid or for charter schools or what have you. And then if looking at the school building aid, then we have contracts let out and we have subcontracts let out. And that's all the responsibility of the local. Yes, there's some overall information provided to the state, but in fact, how we account for that is the audit done each year by that school district, how their revenues, their assets, their expenses. So I don't expect the scholarship organization, this is the responsibility of that organization. And when we start dipping down in the weeds like that, especially when we're not writing the contract, I think would be an error.
Representative Cordele, do you have a question?
No question.
Okay. Representative Hicks? Okay. A couple of questions that had come up was, who are the program stakeholders? I don't know whether you want to answer that, or maybe Ms. Baker?
The department stakeholder is a scholarship organization.
What
That's-
is?
The department stakeholder is a scholarship organization. That's who we specifically contract for as identified in law. So that's who we have, so parents don't come to the department, say potentially the legislature, but this is an interesting question to ask of me.
No, that came up as a question, that's define what this program stakeholders are, so I'm sort of curious. And it's, okay, do that. Representative Ladd.
Yeah, I had a problem with this particular question initially, and I feel that the stakeholders are the parents and the students that are in this program. Those people that are running the program are just like Caitlin's running the regular Department of Education program for K through 12 public education and overall. The stakeholders are the ones that are receiving, that involved and benefiting from this program. And those are the children that are participating and the parents of those children.
That
Madam
seems
Chair?
very reasonable.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Yes, so, agreed, Representative Ladd, that the children and the parents are the stakeholders. And, additionally, we all are stakeholders because we all have an interest in our children and coming up, and hopefully, I'm gonna knock wood again, young people staying in New Hampshire to build their lives and grow our state. And, you know, it's a responsibility that we have taken on to provide education for all of our students because it's to our mutual benefit. It's, you know, this is an investment in ourselves. So I would say that we all are stakeholders, and that's not aspirational. It's very real. Is that people who don't have children in the schools, like myself, I have a very real interest and a stake in how my state progresses and who stays here and who's smart enough to do what we're doing next. So I think that stakeholders is much broader than just parents and the children. Like, otherwise, you know, I don't. It's all of us. We have made a commitment to all of the children to provide education in various forms. So I'd say that we all are the stakeholders. And if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna open that window before we all roast.
Yes.
You must be just boiling, Representative.
If I might?
Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I think the primary responsibility is that of parents. When we talk about public education, we're talking about educating the public, in my view. As a state, we are providing the means for parents to educate their children, whether it be through public school, charter school, or education freedom accounts. That money is going to the parents, and they are the primary stakeholder and have the primary responsibility of educating their children, no matter what education options they select.
So the rest of us, essentially the broader backing support for the program and for the kids.
The broader perspective, Madam Chair, is that we have a vision, and if you look at 21N, at the very beginning of our statutes for education, you'll see the responsibility as a shared responsibility of just about everybody involved, from school board to administrators, to teachers, to parents, to students, to the legislature. That's all noted there. But that vision which we have is accomplished through our compulsory education, which addresses 4 particular areas. The EFA program, homeschooling, private education, and public education. We have that responsibility. So yes, we have that umbrella effect. All those students, all those people receiving services through those 4 programs, we have a vested interest in. But when it comes to specific programs, the actual stakeholders are the parents and the children that are participating in that particular program.
Okay, that's fair enough. Another question, and I don't know if this is something that you or Kate Baker can answer, but one question was, somebody wanted to know the future tools and metrics. How do you measure the performance and accountability, including how the school educational setting demonstrate accountability? And what measurements are you using to ensure that the child is getting educated and educated properly? Do you know?
Question for Caitlin? For Kate?
Yeah, Kate, why don't you come up here? Kate, now. Kate Baker, please. You can share the table.
Yeah, we can. And I have the data if you want it on that 525 kids.
Which program?
Sorry, Brian sent that to me. So your question, red is on, right? Your question is, what are the families doing as far as academic accountability in the Education Freedom Account? So they have 3 choices of ways to demonstrate their educational attainment, specifically around growth of the student. So they can take a standardized test, any nationally normed reference test, which so far has included CAT tests in Iowa and the NEWA as the predominant choice of most families in the program. If they're in a private school, the private schools are also already usually using the NEWA, and so the families are taking the test at the private school, usually the NEWA providing us to that. For a family who doesn't want to take a standardized test or who have a child who they feel like that's not a good way to measure their growth, they can have a certified teacher do a portfolio assessment at the end of the year, and the certified teacher will say or not that the child has shown growth, and then they give us the copy of that letter from the certified teacher. And that's, you could also go to your area public school and take the statewide assessment. We see that more frequently with our state's 11th graders, because remember in 11th grade in New Hampshire, you could take the SAT at no charge. Mm-hmm. And so for quite a few of the 11th graders, they'll want to participate in that statewide assessment. Okay. Otherwise, over the years, we've only seen very few children choose to go to their public school and take the statewide assessment, but there's been a handful every time. Okay. And that data also is in a report, and I thought you were given that data also.
You said we have it, or we can get it?
I thought you already had that and this 525. So it just sounds like perhaps, since you have a new member of the committee, that you need kind of a recap of the data that you've seen or that's available to you in general. And so you may want to schedule that for the next meeting to kind of just do a walkthrough of all of the data that's available to you guys. Okay. Because I hate to see you struggle with something that would have been easy to bring, right? Yes. Or easy to get. Yeah. Yeah. So I would rather perhaps we schedule something that has just these are all the pieces of the data that are available to you, so that you know where to find everything and get, etc. Right? Because I hate to see you struggle for something that you don't want. To that end, should I just continue explaining on that Department of Education report? Remember, there was that 525 kids that were other exits. In fact, remember that they are producing those reports as of a period of time, right? So that's a snapshot, and that snapshot was created towards the beginning of the school year. That was like a September snapshot. And the Education Freedom Account application is a rolling entrance. And I just described to you what the families have to do to reapply, right? To reapply, it's not just they're popping in there and clicking a button, right? They're, in most cases, because they're also applying for the free and reduced lunch differentiated aid, they're providing all their financial information. And then they're also doing this record of educational attainment documentation. And so we continue to allow a family to renew their application. Like, we're not cutting off as of August and saying, if you didn't finish your application, you can't come back. We're instead working with the family to help them meet the requirements of the law, right? Be in compliance, do their record of educational attainment and give it to us. So when you got that report, it was a snapshot as of September. And these were where the children in that 525 were. And again, this was handed out to your committee and can be again, just so you know. Of the 525, I'm going to read it because again, it's something I emailed to the department as a report, but is just on my phone, so I'm sorry I can't print it and I don't have copies to hand out to you. But I'll read it to you so that you can understand where the 525 went, and then it can easily be printed and given to you. It was handed out with that report when it was brought to you, so that page of data that had the 525 on it, this went with it, okay? So 2022, 2024 application in process. These were the number of families in that 525 who were still incomplete, and it was 94 of them. So they were still working on completing the application. This one, a group of 164 of them, again, was another delay in reapplying. It wasn't an exit. They were then DOE approved for the November payment. There's a next group of 11 kids who also were just delayed in reapplying that ended up being approved for the January payment. There's a group, one child graduated early from a home education program. 24 kids moved out of state in that group of 525. 60 of them transferred to home education not using EFA. 64 of them are doing non-public school without the EFA. So they just didn't reapply for the EFA. And then another 107 went to public school. In addition to, remember, this is in addition to the data you saw in your grid. Does that answer that question? I know it does. So.
And that is because of timing.
Of course, yes, because any report that you get is a snapshot of what's happening right then. Right, and then it's posted, and then everyone asks the question over and over, right, over time, the time moves. Yes, so it's different right now than it was then.
Admittedly, yes.
Yes, so that's an update of those 525 kids now instead of that, if that helps you. That's great.
Actually, yes, so
Yes,
that
good.
information,
Yeah.
where is that as far as like, here's the real snapshot when you go on to the website?
Yes, are you guys gonna post that on your website?
So the stat sheet that you have in there is a department report that we started publishing when the beginning of this program in 2022. So we publish it on October 1st, well, based on October 1st data in November of every
This
single
is
year.
up September 1st, 2023.
Okay, so based on the beginning of the year data.
Yeah.
But we don't update it throughout the year.
But when, like Mr. Merce said, when this information was given to the DOE, she had all this additional information that breaks out that 525. And she provided it to the DOE, so could the DOE possibly just add that?
This
Because
is
you
not
have that
The
information?
department cannot reconcile to that data based on because this is information that's contained within her systems that she
Right.
has access to. The department publishes data that we have access to. So at the time when we published this, we could find that there were 75 kids that returned to public schools because we looked at public school records and saw those kids in public schools.
Okay.
We had 100-something kids that Mr. Mers had reported had graduated. As far as returning to non-public schools or whatnot, the department doesn't have that data because we can't reconcile to that. we can't reconcile to a kid returning to a homeschool program without using an EFA because the department does not have that data. So the department wouldn't publish that information because we publish the information based on our report. The only thing that we could do is if we were to update it at a point in time, because they are after the January payment, we could see that there were whatever the number of kids that Kate had said were not there in October. We can see that now we're paying for them again. But relative to the other placements, the department does not have any data to be able to prove that information because we don't get information from homeschool families or non-public school families.
Right.
So there is an updated report there though, where you are on the website that is the enrollment by district. That report was just updated on April 1st. And so that data is current that you're looking at. It's not a snapshot from the beginning of the year. Do you see that?
I do not.
Okay.
It's payment information.
Enrollment by district.
It was, if you were back on their website,
Yep.
it's the second one down in the current year's report. So the top one is the fact sheet, I think, and then the second one down is the by residence. You see that?
Mhm.
So that was updated April 1st on the
Oh,
website.
enrollment heat map,
No, right above that.
About that.
residence of student cost of output.
Yes.
Got it.
So that's current. And so to
Okay.
your question, the information that I just explained to you, because
Right.
the first report you were looking at was from September.
September.
Then the information I gave you was the gap. They just updated this report April 1 on the website, so the data should be there. Okay? You see that?
Yeah.
Because again, we're still moving through time here.
Got it.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a clarifying
You
question
may.
on the 525? You had mentioned there's 60 homeschool students who decided to move out of reporting, like using
Yes.
Class Wallet and
Yes.
just do their own thing.
Yes.
Got it. There's another 64 homeschool students who did the same thing, or what's the differentiation between, I missed like,
Yeah.
because they're
It
both
was-
homeschooling groups, right?
It was 16 that moved to homeschool with no
Oh,
EFA.
16,
60.
six,
and then
60.
60.
Okay,
And then
Yeah.
64 of them are private school kids that decided they're good. They don't need EFA.
okay, so they're not homeschool, okay, I got it. I
Okay.
thought there were two different categories of, okay, got
There
it.
was one other category about homeschoolers, and it was the early graduator.
Got it. Right.
Okay.
Thank you, thank you.
My pleasure.
And
Yeah.
so you update this kind of breakdown with every
I try
payment?
to get anything
Yeah.
anyone asks about, just in general. Right?
Yeah.
And so if somebody has a question, I try and answer it. I don't have any barriers, right? I'll get it from wherever I need to get it and bring it to the group and wherever it comes from. What I am learning though is, and the idea that I just got from listening to you is, navigating the website changed, the Department of Ed. And so I think it would be better if I just created a central location and pulled their reports with our stuff and just put it all together in one place. And so I'll probably have that done by the time we come back next time, because I'm realizing that if something is, even if we give the Department of Ed a report, if they don't want to publish it, it has to be published. And so I think we'll just do the opposite of what we've been doing. Instead of us giving them reports and publishing them, I'll wait for them to publish and pull it and put it somewhere else. That way you have one, wouldn't that be better? To have one central location for everything
Well,
instead of having to go to
They've got to
multiple
do their
places.
thing.
Yeah.
and You could do your thing, so you could just send it to them and also publish. Is
Yeah,
that
I'm
what you're
just
saying?
thinking I'll
Are we both
create,
saying the same thing?
somewhat, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just thinking that instead, I'll just put them in one place. Instead of there being multiple places to go for reports, I can consolidate them into one place.
Well, the DOE has to do their own
Right.
thing.
Well, They said they won't do the expense data.
But
and
you
know
can
yeah.
add that onto your
Yeah,
site.
but we'll
Got it,
also
okay.
just put their stuff on our site too. That way there's one place.
So we just have to push a
Instead of
button, this is
Yeah.
EFA and get it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just make a clearinghouse
Okay.
location that's simple for everyone to use instead of having to go to multiple places. Because again, we're so in this that it's hard to sometimes see what people need. And having the new eyes on the committee is a little bit, that's helpful, right? Because again, you had to struggle to even find that hyperlink, right?
Mhm.
And
So
so-
that's a me problem.
Still,
because
you're
I gotta-
regular.
I gotta adjust the
Yeah.
color contrast on my
You're
own
just a
screen.
you're just a regular human though.
That's not a you
To
problem.
your credit, you're just a regular human like everyone else, right? And so,
I'd like to just interject a little bit into this.
Yeah.
That if we're talking the route of 2 locations, which there are, you already have stuff you put out.
Yes.
But if it's something that's not the responsibility or duty of DOE to do, you may do, but I think it's got to be said that the department's not trying to hide this information. It's the
Yeah.
fact that they're not required to gather this information. So that's what we got to make sure that, you know,
well, we do have to report though to them the
but
expense
some of the stuff,
data.
when we've been talking
We
about the
don't-
contracts, the subcontracts and all that, and who's accountable
Yeah.
for that, you are.
Yes,
They are not.
well, but they do
The big
oversight of
picture,
it.
yes,
Yeah,
but there's stuff that made between you and that contractor or subcontractor of the contractor, where it might be.
yeah,
And so I think we've got to be very careful. We're not, you know, not going to say that why is somebody from the public showing up and saying, why isn't this shown on the Department of Education site?
sure,
I think we got to really define that, be careful that we do that.
Yeah.
Explaining.
And the other thing that we need to make sure too is that we have the most updated available information. So for example, we had a list of service providers that was on our website that was old, and the Children's Scholarship Foundation has updated that information. So we pulled down the old list on our website, and rather than just having was a PDF, we link directly now to the Children's Scholarship Foundation provider of service providers. And so then now we don't have the risk of them adding 10 more and it not getting updated on our website. And so that's why we're trying to be very thoughtful on that. See, Kate, did you see that links to your
it
site?
worked, yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, because it's frustrating for constituents when they call the Department of Education and they want information on a specific data set, and I think you're even finding this here in this committee, that the department doesn't have additional information that we can provide because it's not work the department oversees. And so that's why we're trying to make sure that if it's something that's department's responsibility, we publish it. And if it's something that's Children's Scholarship Foundation, we direct it to the Children's Scholarship or whatever the scholarship organization is. And so there's very clear delineation of responsibilities, and that also that makes out the information most readily available. And that way, if somebody has a question about a service provider, then they're not going to call the department, they're going to call the Children's Scholarship Foundation directly, because that's just a wasted call to the department by that person.
Yeah, but having hyperlinks to each other.
Hyperlinks, yes.
Being able to, so it doesn't become this circular moment.
And that's exactly what we've tried to do, and that's, we put that on our website, and then we have right on it, for more information, contact the Children's Scholarship Foundation, we have links to their information right on the website.
How do you define successful graduation versus program completion? Is that anything that you have? What the requirements are?
Do you do that?
You want me to answer that? I mean, there's the standards to graduate in New Hampshire, right? And so for a child to be graduating, first of all, they do have to meet the state graduation requirements. It depends on what education option you're talking about, right? Because if a child is attending their area, let's just use an example, right? We're in Concord, so say they're going to Bishop Brady High School. I mean, Bishop Brady High School has their own graduation requirements for the students to graduate from Bishop Brady, or if you're going to Bishop Girton in Nashua, your graduation requirements are going to be the school that you're in. If you're a child who looks like a homeschooler, right, a kid who's home educated with the EFA, again, you have to meet the state standards to graduate, and that's kind of the basic. In our experience, most kids are not just meeting the state standards, they're exceeding the state standards. And so I think it's hard to describe what graduation looks like for each EFA child, because remember, they're participating in many multitudes of education service providers or options. So again, it looks similar to how Representative Ladd described the compulsory attendance law, right? Where there's all these different buckets, and in each bucket it might look slightly different.
Yeah. We also have a bill which we're dealing with in the House right now, a PBAS bill, Performance-Based Accountability System. That's relevant to K through 12 public education. And what goes on with the EFA, they're not bound by PBAS. And we got to really clearly understand that. So some folks are saying, well, these are all the graduation the indicators for achieving that performance-based accountability system. And they will be looked at and by the group we're looking at to do that. However, it's something that there's separate baskets here, and we gotta make sure that what we're doing with PBAS doesn't end up a requirement on the EFA program as well.
Why not?
Am I correct, Caitlin, on that?
They are not currently, subject to PBAS.
That's right, yes.
So a very easy question. How many EFA students do we have right now?
Yeah, 4932.
How many?
4932.
As of April 1st, well, technically March 1st,
Okay.
The last payment.
the last payment.
4932, yeah. Am I right? I just pulled that out of my head, so. Is it 4933?
This is.
And do you have applications for next year? And are they coming in now or when?
That's it. We're at the end of the school year now. So April 1 would have been the final time that you could have
Do
gotten
you have new
education
applications
free.
coming in after April 1st?
Yeah, the new application actually overlaps the last period, so the new application opened in March 1st, or thereabouts. It might have been March 5th, but. So now the families are applying for the fall.
Any, looking glass, how many? Which direction we're going?
There's been about 500 new since we opened,
500 new ones, okay.
Since which date?
since about March 5th
Oh, you talk about this year?
for the fall.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you opened, I was going back to EFA time.
Yes, I know.
No.
It's rolling entrance basically, right? The only time the application is closed is between February and March. When we've finished the March 2nd report that gives us the April 1st payment, there's a gap there, and then we reopen, and then families are applying for September 1. And it takes a good bit of time because there's the application process. I wish it was more simple, honestly. I'm trying to find a way to simplify the process, but families do need help, with the record of educational attainment, getting that, finding it. Again, people that are in private schools is fairly easy, but not for everyone. And then most of the families are waiting to do their tax return because they're reapplying annually with their financial data because they want to be considered for that free and reduced lunch differentiated aid. Because remember, there's almost half the kids in the program are those 185% of the poverty line or below, those kids that would qualify otherwise for free and reduced lunch, which of course has been fun to teach people. Sometimes people think that's food, and you don't get lunch, you get the differentiated aid. We're qualifying families for the differentiated aid. And that's been kind of a fun adventure to teach people that it doesn't mean they get free lunch. It means they qualify for the differentiated aid. So good times.
Is there a spot available for these kids?
In the schools,
If they're leaving the public school system or going to another public school or some other?
it does seem like there's still space available in New Hampshire private schools. They're not all waitlisted yet. There are some places that do have wait lists, but we're also finding that people are starting new education opportunities. For example, there was a teacher who was teaching in Bedford at the middle school who left Bedford with a couple of other teachers, and now they've started a new micro school in Nashua called the Harkness House. And so as post-pandemic, I think people are thinking about education slightly differently. For these particular teachers, they realized during the pandemic that their children were working better in smaller groups and they wanted to keep that smaller group environment going. So they started their own school. They're doing like the Harkness method, which is why they call it Harkness House, which is a round table Socratic method. And so I'm noticing that people are starting more micro schools and education options that the families are choosing. So I don't know that we'll run out of space for them, so to speak. I think that people will continue to innovate. I hope people will continue to innovate in education, and and, understand that kind of since the pandemic, that was almost, the parents wanted us to rethink at that point. There was a lot of people who were like, we need to rethink this and want children to be in different types of environments. So there's another group, for example, two public school teachers started a learning center in Newport called Micah Studios, and that's a brand new education option micro school. In that school, every one of the children is a education freedom account children. They're actually not charging tuition except the education freedom account. Again, Newport and Claremont, somewhat of an economically depressed area. I think they knew that the families wouldn't be able to afford to pay, for any kind of private or micro school or pod option. And so they started it with that just given. They were like, okay, if you come here, you're going to apply for this. And so that's been really amazing. They're really enjoying being able to individualize for every student. And it's kind of fun to watch teachers create the education option of their dreams, right? I know that they're telling me this is kind of what they wished they were doing the whole time. And now they have the opportunity to have these small learning environments. And so it's been really amazing. I wish I had more time to tour. Perhaps the committee would like to go on a tour of one of those micro schools and see what it looks like. That might be an enjoyable experience for all of us. I know you're busy, but it's kind of cool.
Cordelli?
Thank you. So basically what I'm hearing you say is that teachers have education freedom as well as students.
Well, the teachers that are starting these
Right.
micro schools were telling me that they wanted to be able to meet smaller groups' needs in particular. And so I think that for them, it's just it's as a teacher, what they wanted to be doing.
Mhm.
And so I think it's amazing for the students, frankly, to have those kinds of environments. So I think it's cool. Yeah.
Right. And follow? I think basically also, it's a movement around the nation. I think that there's, marketplaces for businesses, there's a marketplace for education. And I think as opportunities grow, that marketplace will respond.
Well, to your point, there's an organization that just started a couple of years ago called the National Micro Schooling Center, and these teachers who left their schools to start their own micro schools did get help kind of operationally from the National Micro Schooling Center, because you can imagine, right, you're an expert in education, not in business, right? But running a school is really kind of a small business, and you have to be an educator and a small business person. And so they do need resources to be able to understand how to run a school. It's not that easy, right, to run your own school. And so, that organization does exist to, right, Representative X, that organization does exist to help with people with school founding. There's also another group called VELA, VELA, and they've been giving kind of micro grants for startups to teachers who are interested in starting a innovative option. And so, I think that education is totally different now than it was in 2020. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of fun, exciting things going on that families can participate in.
Question? Senator Altshuler?
Yes, so, building off of Representative Cordelli's excitement of providing education in multiple spaces for students to learn, I think I would like to dial back to the stakeholders because we have lots of different kinds of stakeholders now, and I think it's important that we build into stakeholders our own legislative findings in Chapter 21 and the Department of Education, which right out of the gate, we say the general court finds that the students, parents, general citizenry, local school teachers and administrators, local governments, local school boards, school administrative units, and state government have a joint and shared responsibility for the quality of education delivered through the public education system in the state of New Hampshire. So those are the stakeholders, and there's teachers in all sorts of areas now with the micro schools and the prendapods and private schools and homeschooling, and their students. So we are all stakeholders in making sure that the students are coming to a graduation or a completion that is going to be of use to them and to us, that they are really well educated. So, which brings me to a question for you, Mr. Mers, because Senator Ward had been asking you about graduation.
Yeah, it is like 900 degrees in here.
It is. Should we open another window?
I don't know if there's anything we can do.
It's just the sun.
Yeah.
This is my committee room for all my committees,
I'm
and
so
it is
sorry.
always like this. It is,
I'm so sorry.
it's a roaster.
It's
Yeah.
torture. I mean, look at poor Representative Ladd.
Everybody's gonna lose 4
Meeting
pounds of water
adjourned.
weight by the time they leave.
No tally today, it's too hot.
Meeting
Yeah.
adjourned, I'm sorry. You
It's
guys,
hot.
if you have to work in here all the time, it's.
So recognizing
Question,
that students who are using EFAs to go to private institutions, those private institutions have graduation requirements for their own institutions.
Yes.
And then for students who are using EFAs and they are not enrolled in or matriculated in some sort of
That's right.
a brick and mortar or a VLAX, for instance, they have the option, and we know that some of them use it to take the SATs in 11th grade, and they have the
Great.
option to participate in the NEWA, which having had 3 kids go through NEWA, it still gives me a little like twitch, like prepping for NEWA days, because it's very comprehensive. It is very comprehensive, and it's a commitment to take that. But do we know for the students that we are calling graduates who are, other than knowing that they aged out of the program, do you track like which ones availed themselves of, like if they're not in, for instance, a private school that has an established curriculum for graduation, like has their own graduation requirements, do we know students that don't attend that kind of institution, what they're, like what's happening? What are they
So
actually
remember,
doing?
instead, we're just collecting that record of educational
Yeah.
attainment. And so it would be hard to say of all the NEWAs, which kids were doing what. And so,
But we know some kids took the NEWA, so we can,
Yes.
we know that some
Yes.
kids took the NEWA, some
yes,
kids
but
took
they're
the
not
SAT.
providing us, they're not providing
But the ones
us
who
with
don't.
they're not providing us with their transcript
Okay,
that says that what they've done to graduate. They're either, if they look like a homeschooler, they're doing their own transcript based on the classes and courses and requirements that they've met. Or if they're a private schooler, clearly they have their transcript already built in. And so we haven't required that information from them. Instead, the law requires that record of educational attainment, which is the standardized test or the portfolio evaluation letter. And again, the portfolio evaluation letter would say the student showed growth, but it wouldn't tell us specifically which classes and courses they took. I can tell you circumstantially what I see is most of the high schoolers are taking classes and courses at multiple places that look like that. So they're making their own transcripts because we've noticed they're taking the AP classes at their local high school, which is why you noticed you voted on that 442 bill that had the mechanism to pay the public schools for those high school classes. That seems to be something that the families that look like homeschoolers want to do, is go to their local public school and take those AP classes in particular. We're also seeing a lot of the high school students take the dual enrollment classes, the early college classes at the community colleges. So that's been a very popular way to meet those. Again, they're still meeting their high school graduation requirements because they haven't graduated, but they're doing it at the community colleges through the community college classes. The other thing we see is there's quite a few high schoolers that will do just a comprehensive online program. They'll do all of their classes online through an online ed provider that's not VLAX, like one called K to 12, or there's probably, I mean, maybe even 100 of those online schools. And so that's usually what it looks like is the family either compiling the transcript through classes and courses, or the child is, even if they're not in a brick and mortar building, still in something that looks like VLAX or an online school like VLAX where they're still getting their transcript. If the group of people making their own transcript is very small, that's not something people really want to do.
But you don't report out that.
I don't know.
That data, okay.
No, it would be interesting though, wouldn't it?
Would be really great to
Yeah.
hear how kids are
That'd be
graduating out. Yeah.
Yeah, perhaps we can add that as a survey question when we survey the families. We've been surveying them annually, and I still just kind of add survey questions that we think are interesting, but that might be an interesting question. Did your school provide your transcript, or did you design your own transcript? And then you'd have your group of people that we could at least ask, you know, how are they customizing? What does it look like? You know, for the people that are unbundling, they call that unbundling, meaning they're using multiple providers to do the classes and courses. Might be interesting anyway, kind of fun. Could write some stories about it too.
No, I don't have a question, but a comment to all this, that
Yeah.
we're trying to look at the same issue with our K through 12. One of our requirements for being able to perform what we want in terms of an adequate education is to go on into the military, or go on and get a college degree, a 2-year or 4-year, or do any of these other areas. But working with the National Clearinghouse, we don't know how many of these students end up 2 or 3 years after graduation where they are. And that's the component, I believe, as a trustee of the university system, we want to look at. We want to know, you know, how many are sticking with it and getting that degree, or how many are dropping out after. And then there's a lot of issues, and variables associated with that. Is it affordability? Is it access? So there's much to this whole equation here of following the child after they have left or after they have graduated. It's an important issue that we bring up, and we should really try to pursue it in terms of not just the EFAs, but of all our programs.
Yeah, we do that in the tax credit scholarship. We're surveying the students 2 years after graduation to see what did they choose, and then did they stick with it. And so that's a really small program compared to this, but it has been interesting to see. And to your point, of course, kids are choosing everything, right? Some of them, to me also, remember, if a child graduates and then goes to work, you know, I think that's successful also, so.
I have one follow-up, if I may, on that.
Okay, follow-up.
In terms of those which are graduating from the EFA program, does your program provide them information regarding FAFSA? And that information, and maybe providing them an opportunity to where they may go to help get it filled out?
We're not really doing college counseling at all, no.
I'm not talking about counseling, I'm talking about providing the form. We're having a lot of problems in the nation, right? They revised that form, and nobody
right
can
now it
complete
doesn't,
anything right now.
I know, I have a college
So they
kid
can't
right now.
accept college. But it's something we should be pursuing.
Yeah, I mean, it would be interesting to send it out anyway, but I don't know that we have the resources to provide that type of application help. I mean, we're already helping them do our application, and so I don't want to spread us too thin by now helping people do a different type of application, but we could at least share it.
Or even share that the local high school is doing it on this evening, handing that out. You might want to go and attend and get that information.
Yes, although the families, I will tell you, if they're accustomed to doing our application year after year, having done the FAFSA myself, it's not that different. It's actually even simpler. Our application is more challenging than the FAFSA because remember, if you have a special needs child, you have to give us your IEP, or you have to give us the certification of the disability. I mean, if you're doing the financial piece, if you're the poverty, free and reduced lunch people, you're doing the record of educational attainment. And so I actually found the FAFSA easier.
It
So
used
these
to be
families
like
are-
that.
yeah.
Right now, they're revising it, and I don't know which revision
Yes.
they're on. And students that have been accepted to college
Yes.
can't accept until they know
I
they're
know.
going to
I
get
have
the
one
Pell
of
Grant
those.
or whatever
Yeah.
it's related.
Yeah.
And so they're all on hold, and they're coming up to the deadline here in
Yeah.
another few days.
Yes, but what I am saying is our families are accustomed, remember, to filling out an application that includes financial data, so they're probably better at the FAFSA than we are, Representative Ladd, the scholarship
The federal
families.
government's gotta get the act together, because the form's not available in the final format right now.
Yeah, fair enough, yeah.
Thank you.
One of the questions that we have, that we've heard, is that the EFA program takes away from the public schools. So, how many kids in public school, how many kids
I'm
in
gonna let you do that from
school-aged
your
children,
data.
period?
There, because that's exactly what the Department of Ed just published
Okay,
on the website as of
Number
April
of-
1.
school-aged children,
And so they can tell you by district and all of the financial
okay. I
information.
just want the total right now.
So you total in total public schools, is that what you said, or EFA kids?
Total in public schools,
I'm
Senator
just mean,
Moore?
how many school-aged children in the in the.
In New Hampshire,
in
yes.
Hampshire?
How many school-age children in New Hampshire total? It's like 150,000?
50?
154, 150.
She'll tell us.
But that won't include homeschool kids
Will
either.
not include homeschool kids.
That's right.
Is it 154?
Hold on,
She's
I'm
looking it
looking.
up, so she'll give you
I can only
exact-
click a button so quickly.
Exact answer.
So. And so in district public schools, 155,000.
Can't hear you.
155,000 in district public schools,
155,000.
plus 4,000 in academies, so like Pinkerton specifically. And then you have another 5,700-ish in chartered schools. And we have 80 kids in interstate schools that are New Hampshire resident kids.
Is that a district like
Riverdale.
But roughly a total of school-aged children, 155,000.
No, these all need to be added together. So 165,000 in
Six.
public schools, and then
Okay.
reported to us another total. So a total of all schools, we actually do have a total. on the
And then we have a little under 5,000 EFA students.
So 181,000 in public schools and non-public schools, and that includes charters.
Okay.
And then we don't have an accurate count of homeschool kids, so however many homeschool kids there are in the state,
Okay.
plus the 5,000 in EFAs.
Okay. But when I'm looking at that, we have a fair number of school-aged children in New Hampshire. And of those, we know that almost 5,000 are using EFAs. So the question that we have here is, what is the impact on the public schools of the EFA program? And it seems to me that it should be pretty small if we have 5,000 into 189,000.
Well, I just did it.
I
It's
can't
only
see that
2%.
from here.
I just did the math. It's 2%.
2%.
Yes.
So, but that's good to know, because a lot of people feel that the EFA program has just taken lots of stuff away from the public schools. But it's nice to know there's only 2%.
Well, and Senator Ward, I mean, I just have to just clarify for just a second, because remember that these students who are in the Education Freedom Account are still taxpayers to their districts, okay? And so if you're living in a town, so education funding is mostly local in New Hampshire, right? It's about 70% local, there's about 30% that's state money, and again, I'm rounding. But all of these people in the Education Freedom Account are still local taxpayers, still paying all of their local property tax to their districts that they live in. They're just not participating, and so I'm not sure how that has any negative impact when they're still funding all of their local schools, but they're not participating. And so I just, you know, they're all taxpayers in the program. And this is just the state portion of the money following the child. So for example, before the EFA, it would have gone to Bedford if you lived in Bedford, but then you moved to Manchester, it would have gone to Manchester if you moved from Bedford to Manchester anyway. And then if you're in Manchester and you chose to go to a charter school there, Founders Academy, it would then go to Founders Academy. And so I don't know how that small piece of state money moving with the child like it always has, frankly. It just didn't, before it used to go to public school and charter school, now it can just also go to EFA. So to me, that's not much of a change from what was already happening. If a child was to move out of a district, it's the same thing. They're still local. In this case, though, if a child moves out of the district, they're maybe just not being educated by the district, but they're not moving their home. Right? Before you might have sold your house in the town and moved to a different town. Now you're staying there and still paying your local property taxes, but you're not participating in that district school. And so again, I'm not sure how that is a negative.
Okay. Do you know or have you heard of any district school that has suffered unduly because of the EFAs?
I don't know. I know that some of them are actually getting income from the EFAs.
Okay.
How so?
Can I have those, hey Matt, can I have those expense reports? There's a section of public schools that are receiving payments for, so they have the phase-out payments that they're receiving, but they also are charging some families for classes and courses and receiving, or tuition. Like you could choose a different district public school with your EFA. So I had a family who was not from Amherst, but wanted to attend Sauhegan High School, and they used the Education Freedom Account to pay Sauhegan High School for what otherwise would be the out-of-district tuition. And so, I don't know, it's here. There's a little section of them. They're getting income. It's not that many. Bath Village, Sauhegan, Kearsarge Regional District, and Shaker Regional District. And it's not that much money. It looks like classes and courses there. So.
Of course, in addition, they have that, if they lose the child, they have the 100% tuition the first year.
The phase-out grants, that's right. So in the first year, a child chooses an EFA. The public schools currently are paid a year in arrears anyway. So right now, am I right? How am I doing? The Department of Education right now is paying the districts for last year's numbers. And so if a child shows an Education Freedom Account, they're still there in last year's numbers. So the district is paid for last year. And then the next year, they're paying them 50% of the adequate education grant. And just to make it easy, the average education grant is about $5,000. And so I'm just going to use that as my number in my head. So the second year, they're getting what, $2,500 if the kid is gone. And the third year, they're going to get 25%. And again, they're still local taxpayers. Remember, these aren't people that have up and moved from the district like you would have done pre-Education Freedom Account, right? Pre-Education Freedom Account, you might have actually physically left your district and moved away because you wanted to go to a different school, right? Like if I lived in Manchester and I wanted to go to Bedford, pre-Education Freedom Account, I had to move to Bedford. So I would have been leaving Manchester. I would have not been a Manchester taxpayer anymore. I would have gone to Bedford and paid Bedford by buying a house there, right? Now I could send my child there with the Education Freedom Account and still be a Manchester taxpayer. And so, now I'm kind of spending money in two places.
Madam Chair.
Interesting and complicated.
Yes.
That's so many numbers and so many.
I'm sorry,
Thanks.
it's too much.
Well, I think we've had a fair amount of information. Is there anybody else who has something more they want to talk about?
Yes, please. So to go back to the phase-out grants, they're ending in 2026, so there won't be any phase-out grants. And just, for clarification, yes, if a student's family moved to Bedford, then they would automatically be eligible to attend the Bedford Public Schools.
Right.
But if they want to tuition into the Bedford Public Schools,
Right.
there is no guarantee that the Bedford Public Schools has a spot for them.
I mean,
That's
most
not
schools-
how the tuition,
Right.
we have, in our district,
Yeah.
we have a couple of very popular schools, and they don't have unlimited tuition and students, and actually have turned down students who want to go from
Interesting.
one district that is divided by one town, where one town goes this way, the other town goes that way, they're on the outer ends of each district, and this district has declined to accept tuition and students, so it's not a guarantee. It's a nice it's nice if it happens, but it's not that seamless. You have to, there
If it
are,
was up to me, we would eliminate all the lines, for sure. Yes, I don't understand why if a family wants to attend a public school that they can't. And so I would eliminate all of the district lines everywhere in my world, because I feel like that just is like socioeconomic divides, right? It's like.
there's also class sizes,
You know,
and there's
these are
also capacity.
low-income kids. So in most of the public schools, though, population is declining. And so I think they would want students to come. Maybe not every, like I know Bedford is packed to the gills, honestly. And so I know not every public school could take a tuition student, but
Yeah.
overall student population is declining in New Hampshire by what, I think it's like 10% per year. And so it seems like most of the schools want students to come instead of not want them, in my experience. But
Yeah,
again,
and
it's
that's a very
circumstantial.
nuanced number, because
Yeah.
that's a macro number, but
Sure.
at the district level, there are some, while there may be an overall decline, we do have certain grade levels that are just full to the gills. So you'll have a sixth grade class
Yeah.
that's got, 400 students in it, and then we had a baby boom 2 years after those kids were born, and now we have so many fourth graders, and we have to watch, like, okay, we have this big bubble of kids coming. So while, yeah, we had a little decrease in this area, there are increases in other areas. So it's not a blanket 10% every grade, every school. It's like, we have to be nuanced about
Right,
about
it seems
those
like
numbers.
that's kind of what the education freedom account looks like. What someone told me is it's so small that it's still within the normal variations of what a district would experience just in any given time period of kids going in and out and moving. And I hate to call the program that I run small, right? Because I want it to be impactful and big, but someone did tell me that it's so small in that 2% that it's still just has no impact, because it's the same as you would see kids coming and going in any school in any year. And so to your point, I mean,
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
$22 million isn't that small.
well, I'm
We have
saying
to
with the
admit
number of
that it's-
students
yeah.
in reference to, if you asked a
not
district,
a
what's
small
their
program.
annual, kids coming and going? Someone told me
Nonetheless-
this just still fits in that little,
Okay, nonetheless, I want to switch gears and go to the Parent Education Service Provider Advisory Commission, to find out, like, how is that, like, how are they determining their processes, and, who do they, and how are they, like, is there a evaluation form or a rubric that they've come up with about who they're going to accept and who they
So
are
that-
feeling a little hinky about?
that board does appeals.
Just appeals?
Yes, and we haven't had any appeals that the board needed to address.
Well, but they're supposed to be providing recommendations about implementing,
I think that's this group that you're talking about.
no, I'm talking about the Parent Education Service Providers.
Where do you see that? Where is it?
Section 194F5,
Oh, okay, this, the,
so they meet at your direction. And they're supposed to provide recommendations about implementing, administering, and improving the EFA program, so what else, so they're just doing, at this point,
At this
Are you
point,
saying
they're doing appeals.
appeals,
Yeah.
and appeals, like, who's appealing them?
So it says the commission shall consist of 7 members.
Yeah.
Of parents that shall represent Pure County, blah, blah, blah. Where am I?
It shall represent no fewer than 4 counties in the state, members appointed by the director of the scholarship
Yeah,
organization.
we've been using it as an appeals board, and so I'm just trying to figure out where that came from, Senator Altschiller, so that I'm not just answering you with no information. Oh, yeah, okay. To provide a recommendation of the scholarship organization as to whether an education service provider should be allowed to continue to receive payments. So that's why, based on number 3,
Yeah,
94F53, that's how we've been using the committee for appeals. So if we had a education service provider who was appealing their denial, we would use this committee.
a provider who was denied
Yes.
being on your approved
That's
list
right.
of vendors?
Yes, we would use this committee. Otherwise, it's just been advisory, and they haven't done very much work at all, except for having a few conversations. Because we haven't needed them to do the appeals process. We expect that we might need them at some point, and so it's in place if it's needed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So no one's appealed?
So what we've been doing, if somebody asks us a question, is we're usually able to just solve their question or concern internally, and we haven't needed adjudication.
Okay, so in order to become a approved vendor within the program has its own rubric of
That's right.
criteria.
That's right.
Okay,
Yes, and so if you didn't meet one of the criteria, we would say you can't participate. And if you didn't agree with us, you can appeal to this committee.
okay. And is that vendor application on the
Yes, if you
Yeah,
go to our
okay.
website, on the EFA page of our website, and you click
education providers?
sign up, you walk through the application. To walk through the application, you'll have to use X's like a test, if you want to test it.
I see it.
Okay.
Yeah, I see where it is. Yeah.
Okay, great.
So if you deny their application, it's a conversation with you about like, here's why we denied your application,
Yes.
and they have an opportunity to rectify.
I mean, sometimes they just need help. They don't
Yeah.
understand the process.
Sure.
In our experience, most of the people who are come to us that look like it would be an appeal, we're able to help them. They just don't understand the process. I mean, the whole thing is a new idea. This could be the same as discussing a parent applying for the EFA and a provider applying, right?
Yeah.
It's new to everyone. And so, yes, people need customer service,
Got it.
tons of it. Because they might, like, for example, we have a new process in the application where we're asking for how they keep their students safe. And in that question, you might reply with what you do for a background check, for example, for your employees in a private school. And the language, safe learning environment is something that people haven't heard yet, right? That's a new idea. And so we're spending a lot of time explaining those types of things.
And it's funny because it just used to be understood that learning environments in schools are safe places for children.
Yeah.
It's a shame that we don't live in that space anymore. Thank you for clarifying
welcome.
that. So, they only, are there members?
There are members.
There are members.
Yes. Yeah, we just,
Do you
again,
meet?
we don't need them. We would call them when we need them.
Got it.
So they're ready if there's an appeal for them to adjudicate, but there have not been appeals for them to adjudicate. And so we don't really need them. It's lovely. They're nice people.
I'm sure they're great. I'm sure they're wonderful.
And the
They're great
feedback,
singers.
and the feedback that we get on the implementation of the program is amazing. So, I mean, we have data around how people feel about our implementation of the program. I mean, the families are satisfied. There's a few things that people would change. For example, right now, you have to log into multiple platforms to be able to use your grant, right? Because you have to use Class Wallet. That's where the money is held so that it can be compliance monitored as they're using it. But they also have an application database. And so some of the feedback that we've received is, could we make that one? Could we have the application and the spending database be one, so that if you're a family, for example, that has technological challenges, you're not having to go into multiple places to apply and use your money. And so that's one piece of feedback. Another piece of feedback we got is that in the digital wallet, you have to change your password a lot. And again, it's financial software, right? Like your banking software. And so it makes sense that they would ask you to change your password frequently. But for some of our families with technological challenges, just the password change over a period of time is enough to frustrate them, and they need help. And so they are hopeful that we can create some secondary two-factor authentication that makes it easier for them. Although again, that's another thing that's really challenging. When you're using two-factor authentication, you might not have the right components for that. You have to be able to get to your email or your cell phone. And so that's another piece that we're trying to improve, how the families access their grant and making it easier for families who have some technological challenges. For example, a piece of the wallet, it's mostly mobile optimized, but most of our families are using the application process and the digital wallet on their phones. They're not people that maybe even have, again, these are low-income people, they don't necessarily have a computer. A lot of them are using their phones. And one section of the digital wallet, the piece that's the internal shopping piece, the closed loop, isn't very well mobile optimized. And so that's something they've given us feedback that we could improve that by mobile optimizing that shopping platform. So we're working on that. So that's the kind of feedback we get. I mean, people are happy and satisfied when they call us. They say they like to call us on the phone to get help. Most of the time, about 50% of families said they only want to call us on the phone when they have a question. We answer, we're great at that. But a few technology challenges that we're working on improving. So we get good feedback anyway.
Representative Ladd has a question.
Yeah, I'd like to follow up on this 194F:5.
Yeah.
The commission.
Yeah.
The Roman 1 stipulates that the commission is there to assist the organization in implementing and administering the program and improving the EFA program.
Yeah.
Does this, and you've indicated, at least to myself, is what I've gathered from that, they're primarily used for appeals right now.
Yeah.
However, in the other stuff that you're getting back in, is that just done as a parent might contact or through a survey of some kind? Are these reports to implement, how you administer, and how you improve, coming from the commission, which is made up of these members, which are specified in that law? Or is it just kind of an informal process?
So it's both.
And then if it's an informal process, why not through this particular commission?
Well, it's both and, because remember, it's a parent and education service provider commission. And so the people on the commission are the same people that we would survey. So they're the same. If you're on the commission, you're one of our participating families. And so you're going to get our already survey. So it's both.
I'd like to see it delineate the difference between the two here, because
Right.
if it's a commission, it's specifically tasked with members from at least 4 counties. And to that, and then I would say that they would make those recommendations to the director, which is you.
I know, and they've told me they don't have any recommendations, that they say we're doing a great job. And so that's the hard part about having a commission made up of the stakeholders that are participating. I mean, they know how it works, so they're saying we do a great job. They don't have feedback. They wouldn't find room for improvement. The things that I shared with you are the things that we've received feedback on. And so the members of the commission think that we're doing a great job and we shouldn't change what we're doing. So
But
there's
they've
that.
never actually met to say that. It sounds like they're telling you individually, but this commission
Yes,
hasn't met,
they told
and
me
they
they don't have any feedback to provide, so.
but they haven't met to say that in.
They said
in the
that's why they wouldn't
That's-
meet.
That's not how commissions work, though. They have to meet, and if they meet and then they don't have feedback, they don't have feedback, but they have to, like statutorily, they're required to come together. You have to call them together.
I would suggest
Now they
that
tell me that they don't have any.
as individuals, they have no authority.
Yes,
As a group like a school board, an
Yeah.
individual member doesn't have any authority.
yeah,
But it's the board itself. And I would suggest that the commission should be making those type of recommendations or input. As
they
stated in
just tell me they have there's no room for improvement is what they're saying. So the families, the commission, everyone tells us that. I mean, remember, we won an award for this implementation. So, I mean, people are saying that.
I'm not trying to argue with you, Kate.
No, it's okay, yeah.
But the
Yeah.
commission is a statutory
Yeah.
commission, so it would have to meet with public notice, and you would have to issue a report. If they say what we're hearing, that it's all good to go, then they would so state that within their report. So I think what when we put all this together years ago, and I was part of this, it was just another way of having some oversight and some feedback as far as how you're doing in the organization.
Yes, I mean, we do have great feedback. And so I have tons of quotes from them saying how wonderful the program is. And so I do have that. I did read it that the scholarship organization may request the committee to meet. And so if I didn't require that they meet to talk to me about something that they're 100% satisfied with. And so they didn't have any feedback and I left it because to me, I read it that we may request them. So I wasn't gonna make people drive to Concord for something that they didn't have any feedback to provide, except
You could zoom
for
it, you could zoom
great
it.
Yeah.
job,
Yeah.
right?
Well, it says that you may request the commission to meet in person or virtually, not that you can request they not meet. I mean, you got two options.
Yeah, I mean, I've received great feedback, so, I mean, I could bring some of that feedback to share with you if you want, or if you have a suggestion,
I
I'll
have no doubt
take it.
you've said that multiple times. I have no doubt that the members of this commission have great feedback, but a commission, a statutory commission has to meet. They gotta meet. You have the benefit of being able to meet virtually, unlike a lot of commissions like us.
Yeah,
So, you can do it via Zoom and produce that report, but you have to notice it and you have to, like, all these people who are sitting here might wanna,
what type of report would you ask for from these people?
well, you're telling us that they're telling you something, and like Representative Ladd just said, that needs to be in a more like, a commission needs to bring it forward. So,
I'll think about it, let's think about it, because number one, to me, says they assist, they don't report, so.
Let's take that up next time.
Yeah, sounds
For
good.
clarification.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anything else that needs to be brought up? If not, then I will ask for when do you want to meet next?
well, it took us a while to get, probably, I mean, we've not, this committee hasn't met for like 5 months, right? Is it,
Yeah,
it's
I
been
think we probably.
5 months,
Twice,
so
twice a year, I think is probably what we have planned out.
twice a year. Well,
We can meet more frequently if
I
there's
don't know,
something.
maybe
to take up.
quarterly would be more appropriate to get more, more up-to-date information, because we found out today that there's stuff that, we need to request ahead of time, so
Well, see, it's March, do you want to meet in June?
it's April. So June, May, June. Let's get that calendar.
Just a tentative date. When do we end in June?
I don't know, but I'm really I've been down here every day, every week for the last, I don't know how many years.
Same.
And I'd like to see June for once being a time to enjoy seeing a little bit of North America. So I'd rather meet sometime in May,
Okay, it's fine,
In the May.
towards the latter part of it. Yes, that's right, Representative.
okay.
So we got June 3rd, which is a Monday. We're still,
Oh,
I think we're in committees of conference at that point.
I will not be here because I have to be in a meeting on that weekend before. So I'll be driving back from New York on the 3rd of June.
Okay. How about the 17th?
Doing before that.
That's Memorial Day.
The Monday before?
That's
That's-
Memorial Day.
Oh,
28th or 29th?
Of May?
28, 29, I have the wedding in New York.
Oh, okay.
Will that
Of May or May? Okay.
following Monday in June? Who's that?
All right, so we're looking, oops. The 7th, well, she's away the 3rd. Senator Ward's away the 3rd. Can we do the 17th?
I may be at a conference on the 17th, I'm out of June.
Let's see, 17th.
Why don't we send out a doodle poll?
the 10th.
10th of June? That's next following Monday, yeah.
10th? How's that look for you, Representative? Good?
Well, the last day we can act on committee of conference reports is June 13th.
Yeah. So,
And that week prior to that is just always extremely busy.
I heard, but we have some,
I've
the
been
chair
through
has
it.
the chair has some big conflicts. So
And
we're
so,
trying to work
to
around
me,
her.
Unlike the 10th prior to would be, I don't think be possible.
All right, which brings us back to the 17th,
Yeah.
the morning of the 17th. No one actually has a commitment yet, right?
Oh, June or May?
June,
Okay.
okay.
Well, why don't we take a look at it and people can check the schedule and let us know, let Aaron know. Like,
Yes,
yeah,
how's it look for you on the 17th right now?
okay.
Yeah,
I don't have my thing right here.
The 17th, I have nothing down on the calendar. Then
All right.
it might be good for Aaron to put out maybe 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
And then let us say which one's the best or not,
Okay.
morning, afternoon.
Okay. We'll do that.
I'm gonna pencil something in nonetheless.
Okay, anything else that needs to come before the committee? If not, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
I do, second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Everyone agrees. Just
Thank you
hit.
very much for
Finally, just hit right now.
Thank you, Ms. Baker, and